Hi guys, it's Hitanjani from Bindaas Bollywood Dance Company. Today we have one of my favorite people that I love talking to, Joel Evans. He's a creative producer and also a poet, and also so much more, which I won't go into, and Joel can explain that. Hi Joel, welcome.
Oh, thanks for having me. This is awesome. I love talking. It's one of my favorite things to do.
And I love talking to you. Yeah.
Um, if I can, I'd like to start by acknowledging the country we're both on. So I'd just like to acknowledge that we all live and work on Indigenous land, and I pay respects to the Bunurong and Wurundjeri people and their elders past, present and emerging. Always was, always will be. And yeah, I mean, I love chatting to you. I just think the podcasting is something I should do more of because it's my favorite thing to do.
Should. I think anyone that talks to you knows that you can just talk for hours on so many different topics. And especially, I think the creative industry suffered so much because of COVID. So I can't even, you understand more than anyone because you've been on both sides as well. But tell our audience, for those people that don't know you, what's your background? Like, where did you start? What have you dabbled in? Because I know it's so many things as well. It's very interesting.
Yeah, it's a pathway I didn't expect. So I started off as an actor. I did a drama out of school. I was all right at school. I just didn't really care about it.
Yeah.
I was a good student, but the only thing I liked was drama. So I went to uni and did a drama degree at Deakin, and that was fun. I just made theatre and loved performing. And so when I graduated, I moved to the city. I grew up in a small town called Rosebud, and there was no arts there. Like there was no art opportunities there for young people. And yeah, so after I moved to the city, I became a bit of a freelance artist. And as all actors do, there's just never enough gigs. So you just end up making your own projects. So that led me to like writing and producing and just all the behind the scenes stuff about how art projects get put on.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I was still acting a little bit. I got some gigs here and there, and I really liked uni. So I went back and I did my dip ed and eventually my Masters of Education. And I just loved learning. And that was like a pivotal time in my life where really just my perspective changed. But I didn't want to be a teacher in a school. I just didn't really, being a full-time teacher didn't appeal to me. So I started working for non-for-profits where I'd go into schools that wouldn't have a budget for an art program. And then I'd run an art program. So that was really fun, really interesting, got to meet lots of different types of people. And that's when I think I got interested in like social change and art, social change through art. And eventually there was a pivotal moment where I started asking people for advice, and I was just like, I admire you. And I would just cold call anybody and just be like, I want to buy you a coffee. Let's have a chat. And sometimes that would happen and sometimes it would not. And I met an amazing lady called Ama who gave me heaps of advice, and I just went and did everything she said. What was key is I made coffees and poured beers at Art Centre Melbourne.
Wow.
So I did that for years, just being a poor student. And and I met everyone.
Great way to meet people as well.
Like the arts industry happens at the bar. Like it sucks if you don't drink because so much happens at the bar. And then so I one point I had like 10 different jobs I was juggling. And I actually like burnt out really hard and I just quit. I was like, I'm done. And because I was applying for so many jobs, like I probably did 100 applications in 1 year and didn't get any of them. And I burnt out really hard one summer and I moved into my friend's bungalow. And then at the end of that summer, I got like my dream job at Art Centre Melbourne.
Fantastic.
And then, now I do creative producing, and my favorite thing is social art. I worked in a project that was really interesting called Haircuts by Children. And social art is, for anyone who doesn't know, is really just when artists create some sort of scenario publicly and the art is only realized when people participate. It just explores an idea and I love it. I could talk about it for ages. And then in my current job, there's a spoken word scene and I've just got heaps into poetry and I love it.
Oh, wow. Oh my gosh. Do you have any links or have you like?
I do. Yeah. My Instagram, which I just have not been using, like in ISO, I'm not inspired to write because I need to like live. Like I'll feel like I have a poem when I'm like like being part of the world. And because I'm just stuck, I just feel like I've got nothing to say.
Fair.
But fatherwise.poet is my
Okay.
Instagram, or just like Joel T. Evans is my Instagram.
Nice.
I
We're going to
post
put
on
all the
both.
links below as well. That way people can get in touch with you. And who knows, you might meet more creative artists and others in the industry that you might want to collaborate with as well.
I'd love to. I have a dream that I want to do like a spoken word show with like a celloist.
Nice.
But I don't have enough poems yet.
Oh, I'm sure you do. I'm pretty sure you're just being modest here.
I do have a heap of poems, but I don't have a lot that I'm proud of. Because for me, like I was an actor and I was confident as an actor, but then when I kind of started writing, I was really insecure about it and I just didn't show anybody. Like if you could talk to my partner about when I would share her something, and it would take me like, I'd need so much courage, and then she'd give me one critique and I would crack it. Like I just couldn't take it. But now I don't mind. I just put it out in the world and I don't care.
I guess art in general, and especially when you think of things like poetry or spoken word, it's very exposing. So you have to you have that certain level of vulnerability that you don't know whether you want the whole world to see or not. So it can be very delicate. Yeah.
Well, that's spot on. My like process is like, my current process is like, how vulnerable can I be? Like, what is my deepest truth? And I'm just going to say it, or just try to say it and see what happens, because I just reckon the world needs more vulnerability. Like,
Yeah.
let's just normalize it.
That's it. And I think, vulnerability is what generally connects us humans more than anything else as well. We all have those innate feelings and insecurities and, strong emotions, whether it's positive or negative. And it is those vulnerabilities that kind of you find the common ground with each other. Yeah.
And if you're brave enough to like do it first, which is something I think I've always gone first, like even back at uni or even high school when it was drama, it was like, who wants to go first? And I would just always do it because I hated sitting there thinking about when it was going to be my turn. So I just always would go first. And it's funny because now that I know a lot more about the world, I don't really do that anymore because I'm a white, straight, like Western educated cis man, and I have all this privilege. And I'm like, now I actually sit back and I just wait. I'm just like, give other people space and I'll go if no one wants to go. But yeah, I think I've noticed when I be vulnerable in like a public space, in a meeting or in a workshop, it just allows other people to then be vulnerable. You kind of set the tone. You're like, oh, that's okay here. And I think it's key to my teaching practice to always just model vulnerability.
Yeah. And it's good because, you said it perfectly. You set the tone for that acceptance as well, and that's something everyone's generally a bit weary of. But I was going to ask you, like, since you've kind of worked on both sides of this, like you've worked as an actor, like you've done poetry, like I think you've done musical theater, etc. From what
That's the one thing I haven't done. I've worked on musical theater shows, but I have no musical talent whatsoever.
Okay.
I'm tone deaf. I can't keep rhythm. Like I wish I did so badly, but I don't.
Oh, we all do. I wish I did too. But I was going to say, because you work, behind the scenes on so many things, but what's it like to actually work, as an actor and then be on the other side of that, organizing events and, just being a bit more formal and not,
It's
so exposed.
It's so interesting because there's like no uni course to be a producer. Like there's no uniformed way to learn how to produce events. It's just you just learn. Everyone just learns in all these different ways. There's no clear pathway. I think it's super helpful that I've kind of done every single role. Like I'm not at all good at lighting anymore or sound, but I dabbled in it at uni, and I've done front of house. I've done everything, and so I like. It so depends. I think it's evolved with me. Like I used to love being front and center. Like I was just like, put me on stage. I just lived for it. And now I like sitting at the back of the room and knowing that I helped organize an event and seeing other performers thrive. But the one thing I wish that I knew everything I know now when I was an actor. Because if I did, I would have a theatre company and it would be a success because I know how the system works. And one thing that's big is the art is like 20%. Like the behind the scenes is like 80% of a project. Like the fun bit is so small. which is a learning that's taken me a long time to accept because you got to be patient. You got to like do so much admin to get something happening.
Yeah. Long process.
I think more than anything, they need each other. Like, and I think what I've been feeling a lot lately is artists have so much power. Like they just have, and it's not quantifiable. Like everyone wants to have reports and show the impact of an art event and how many tickets did you sell and how did you contribute to the economy and how much social connection was there. But you just can't quantify what artists do. Like they engage people. Like you just look at the response to the bushfires, and the first people to respond was just artists and like doing fundraising, and had like the way artists capture people's imagination and make them feel or reflect or be challenged. Like you just can't quantify that. And I realized that my best skills, I think trying to be a performer as a full-time job, was facilitation and not performing generally. So for me, it was actually about finding what I was best at. And I think I found that. But you got to be creative in every part of the job, I reckon.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's no like the artist is creative and the producer is not. Everyone's creative.
Yeah. Everyone is. I think not everyone realizes it. That's another thing as well. And they don't search for it either, some people. So, and that's I think one thing that holds people back from reaching their full potential as well. Yeah.
And one thing I've learned recently is we need more producers. Like there's so many great artists out there, but there's not a lot of people who will help that art get made. And so, I mean, if we look at the way that the government over the years has just defunded the arts like more and more each budget, it's like super sad, because I just think it's what we need. Like if you look at the mental health epidemic in Australia and so many other social issues, like I think the fact that arts has been defunded over and over, there's a correlation there. Like
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. Did I answer your question? I don't know.
Yeah, you did beautifully. Sorry, I was just taking it all in. But I have to say, one of the things I love, I love working with you because you make it so warm and welcoming, and you're always open to ideas from us as well. It's not just about, okay, here's this project, we've got this funding, blah, blah, blah. This is what you need to do. So you're always really willing to hear how we can, accumulate that, all those emotions for, that engagement from the audience as well.
Well, and that's super on purpose, I think, because I've been in both shoes, and I've seen like working for institutions that have quite a lot of power and resources. I like working with an artist isn't ordering a coffee. Like it's emotional and it's personal and it's like it's political and it's really difficult. So my thing is like give the artist the most amount of power you can in the project. And actually, currently, I like the more I read about inclusion and like cultural literacy and cultural safety, the more I am peeling back when I have projects and I'm just like, this is the goal. The goal is to engage this community for this event or whatever. Let's create the project together. So I'm not sure if like managers and like people that like funding bodies like this approach, but I always have half-cooked ideas. Like they're never ready because it needs the collaborators to be realized. It just makes it so much more exciting. Like we got to be innovative. The world is changing, so we must.
Exactly. No, and I think, you said it so beautifully. Like it's just sometimes people in the other positions, they haven't been in your shoes. For example, you've worked in so many different roles. You know how to relate to an artist, their emotions, what they go through on a day-to-day basis. Like, I mean, I'm sure every artist that I know, and pretty much all artists, like we've been there, we've all worked those hundreds of jobs and waiting for that next gig and putting in all our effort and then losing motivation, finding it, and being able to be nurtured by a producer or an events organizer is such a big deal for us, because it makes us feel valued as well and appreciated and also heard. That's such a it's great. Yeah,
that's lovely to say. And at the end of the day, like that's the magic. Like the artist is making the magic. That's why we're all here. So when a venue or a funding body or a festival tries to center their opinion or like their agenda, it's just like the art is why we're here, and therefore the artist, like that's what brings the community in, like that's what creates social connection, that's what creates social change, the artist. Like, and it's funny having worked at like art centers, art is so rarely spoken about. It's really strange, like, or
Wow.
it's really around, like yeah, art centers are, like lots of them are just kind of pristine lobbies that look like it kind of looks sterile sometimes, like a doctor's waiting room, and there's no art. And it's like always my critique, it's like, where's the art?
It's
Where's
like
the
it's
art?
almost like it's polished in a very blank way. I found it's that you need the other elements of the actual art. But I was gonna say to you, like, I wanted your opinion on something, if you're comfortable to speak about this.
Yeah, always.
I know, like, Melbourne's, just Australia in general, is always thriving for diversity and multiculturalism. And I know Melbourne pushes the diversity a lot through art, but at the same time, sometimes it feels like it's just something they're saying just to tick box. And I mean, we've found that a lot. I mean, not just in the, Indian dance industry, but just, other artists that we've spoken to over the years and their experiences as well. And I think I don't know, I find Melbourne says that, the industry, but they're not as inclusive as they can be.
Yeah, no, I would 100% agree. Oh yeah, I think about this all the time, because one of my previous jobs was access and inclusion and trying to bring people into art centers and art projects that traditionally don't come. And I think it's interconnected. I think because I'm like from a working class background and my family didn't engage in the arts, so I have felt excluded from the industry before I entered it. And now I'm definitely on the inside, but class is part of it, I think. And so when you look at the people that fund it, and philanthropists and funding bodies, and the traditional companies that get a lot of funding from the government, I think there's a concentration on traditional Western art forms, and they're given so much resource, like so many resources, but they only service a portion of the community. Like, and in terms of diversity of cultural practice, like, and artists and audiences, that's not a huge priority. And I think part of it is economic, which is silly, because people buy tickets. Every community will go see a show, like if it's a show they want to see, but because, and the arts is incredibly whitewashed. Like Diversity Arts Australia does some really great research in that. And yeah, I mean, I'm at these conferences all the time, and the room, and and I have that privilege. I'm white, but I'm most definitely more and more each year just an ally and trying to correct that imbalance. Because for me, it's just my learning how government and funding bodies speak, like statistics are super important. And so for me, it's all about representation, like who is our population, who is Australia. And I think the cultural narrative that our artists play tells a story that isn't Australia. Like currently, if people were to consume our film and our books and our TV shows and our dance, like they would get a very different picture to what Australia actually is. So I think it's so powerful as to how people see themselves either part of our social fabric and community or not. And so I think it's so powerful and important. And we're not representing Victoria. Like we're just not. Like when you look at a festival guide, it's not representative of Victoria. When I look at an art centre and what they have on, it doesn't look like the community that I see when I leave that building. And yeah, I think it's about pathways. I think for me, it's about moving some of the funding that traditional art forms get. Like I have this rant where I just go on about opera and how it's no longer relevant. A lot of people I work with have heard me. Well, it's just like, so Opera Australia get, just to call them out, Opera Australia get $20 million guaranteed per year. So do like all the major Australian art companies. I mean, that might change, but yeah, Australia Council has this guaranteed funding for the majors. And there's lots of orchestras and ballets and operas. And I just don't know the percentage of the population that care about opera. And I don't know how like really old German and Italian operas are relevant to today's stories. Like, and I look at like hip hop is huge. Like it's like the #1 art form in the world at the moment in terms of like Grammy wings and record sales. And is massive. And if we took that money and invested in local hip hop artists to run sessions out of libraries, like what a better use of money. Like I just don't see, there's such a perception that art isn't for everybody. And I think that's because of the arts industry. Like, I think it's because they've catered for one audience and it's to its detriment. So, and part of that is cultural inclusion. And because it's not just the artists, it's the art forms. Like if the curating team of a festival is entirely white, they're just going to include what they know. And so for me, working in an art center that's in a really multicultural like region, like the population's got over 150 languages, I'm learning and collaborating. Like what art form don't I know about? I won't know like the best classical Indian dancer. Like, and even saying that, like I know that's ignorant because there's regions and there's different styles in those regions. And yeah, it takes so much learning.
It is a lot of learning. But look, I mean, I have to say again, like one thing I love about the council that you work for, Casey Council, oh my gosh.
That's okay. Like it's
so inclusive.
Yeah, okay, good.
So
good.
Inclusive. Yeah. I mean, I'm saying this, look, like I'm just, I'm a bit of a Julian Assange when it comes to the arts industry myself. Anyway, so like I'm from Moreland City Council. They're okay.
Yeah.
Whoever's listening from the council, you guys are okay. You can do better. Elections are coming up, so pick up your game. But yeah, it's we found that there's not that, again, that diversity factor and inclusion factor. It is only catered to a certain audience, and a lot of people don't even hear about shows and events because it's not reaching them. The whole marketing strategy is just, I don't know what to call it.
It's just the traditional way of doing things. They're not evolving to meet the different communities that could be audiences for that art center or arts festival. And for me, it's actually like, I've heard the economic argument, like these audiences, they come to the theater, they buy tickets, like we know that it's safe, but like when you go to see a traditional theater show, that audience is old and white, and we have to be realistic. Like when that generation dies, if there's not an appreciation for the arts, which there isn't, like when you look at who's coming to theater, this should be like future-proofing for the arts industry. Like we need to engage new audiences now, because when that safe audience that we program for and market to pass away, who's going to come to art centers? They'll be empty. We need to engage new audiences now, which is not just for me, it's an ethical imperative. It's like, these are publicly funded institutions, they're for everybody, but I'm learning how to I'm learning all the different ways to argue it. And the economic one is a big one. It's like, we got to stay relevant.
No, 100%. And when you really deconstruct everything, it goes back to, the basics of, look, you need the newer generations or different audiences for the future. But at the same time, when you take it back a couple of steps, like those generations, when they're younger, they need more hip hop classes. They need more hip hop teachers. So those teachers need funding and spaces and etc.
Exactly.
It's such a snowball effect. You have to really take it back so many steps.
And that's how I think about it. I think like access and inclusion for all is like a multi-generational task. Like we'll never complete it. Like we're just going to keep evolving, because as soon as you get somewhere, you're going to learn something different, and you're not all of a sudden you're excluding the community, because it's not a set thing. Like life is always changing. So yeah, like you said, there's all these different pathways, and you need representation and inclusion at every single pathway to make sure that that everyone is at the table or or on the stage. Because I've been in meetings before where we're talking about like cultural diversity, like really the black bodies on stages, and compared to white bodies, which dominate the stage. And a lot of people have said in meetings I've been in, the artists aren't there. And from my experience, that is not true. Like they are there. It's just the lens of the Western trained white programmer doesn't recognize that as good or professional, because they don't understand it. It's not what they've known, and so they shouldn't program that. Let's have leaders and programmers and producers that are from all different cultures and all different backgrounds, because they know their art the best.
You really do need to start your own company of production company and
If
just
any funding body is listening or philanthropist, like, yeah, I've got a great idea for this. Like, my dream is to own a farm that's like an art stay where you come and stay on my farm and there's this big barn and you make me work in my barn. So it's like this month-long or like 3-week long experience. And then the show can go on a tour and do whatever. That's my dream, but I would need to be a millionaire to make that happen.
oh, please, whoever's listening, go with it, because we all need that and we all want you to have that as well, because we need more people like you. One thing I love about you is that because you've had so much experience in different aspects of the industry, you're aware of all this, and it might seem like such a simple thing to say, but awareness is the first step. Like if you don't raise, if the topic doesn't come up, someone needs to say it, and it's great that we have people like you that are actually raising these topics, because it's not spoken about enough. It needs to be normalized by the conversations ongoing. Yeah.
I just love chatting about the thing we shouldn't chat about. Like, every time we shouldn't talk about something, like you don't talk about religion and politics, I'm like, let's talk about that straight up. Like, and I think when I was at uni and I got onto like this philosophy of lifelong learning, like just always learn. And I'm such a convert. Like, I find learning so interesting, and I just always want to learn more about anything. But really, it's about like society is what I find most interesting in people. But yeah, just go straight to the thing that is we're not supposed to talk about, because why are we not supposed to talk about it? Like, if your silence is violence, like you're just letting it happen. But there's just, it's so much so that one time I had an Uber driver tell me that my ideas were too big. Like, I started talking to him about, like, I'll often get in an Uber and just be like, man, what's the meaning of life? Like, and just go so deep, so quickly. And this guy was just not into it. He was just like, too big. And I was just like, oh, how good's the weather? And I just totally changed my tune.
No, I think it's great. I mean, those are the conversations that are memorable, and hopefully the next Uber driver, is a bit more responsive and engaging.
Oh my God, I've had some great ones. Yeah.
I actually wanted to ask you, just off topic as well. I mean, still arts related, because I know in the Indian dance industry within Melbourne, globally as well, and I think it's just basically in the entire arts industry, but especially dance. I'm not, maybe not so much acting, but musical theater and dance. Male dancers, male performers, like, did you ever feel excluded in any way? Because it is a highly female dominated industry.
Never. No. Like,
Right.
in my experience, I've often been the only like heterosexual man in a cast or a class or a workplace. It's really common, but the older I get and the more I read, I think that's just white male privilege. Like, I just feel like everywhere is a space for me. Like, I've been reflecting on that a lot and learning, like kind of working with First Nations artists a lot, and really trying to learn about the history and the culture and colonization and how that's still happening. And it's such a deep, confronting thing to learn about, that we all should talk about and learn about, because it's how we got here and it's the history of this nation.
It's not taught enough in schools to begin with, and that's where kids are like sponges anyway at that age. So
everyone's born like neutral, and they learn whatever acceptance or hate they have. And so I've recently, in the last few years, really come to understand that there's just spaces that I don't belong, and just accepting that. But the fact that I found that confronting was something that sort of my internal reflection is just like, why is that? And I just think society sets up white men to expect to be the main character of everything and the center of everything. And because of that, I've just always felt comfortable in sort of any situation. Because every movie there's a white straight man who gets everything he wants. Like, that is the plot of almost every Hollywood film. In almost every Hollywood film, there's a white straight man in that. And so, I've been thinking about that heaps lately. Like, I don't always have to be the main character in the story. Like, I can be in a situation and I'm just an extra, or I'm a support actor. And I think about that a lot, because there's just not equality in our society. And for there to be equality, people with privilege have to take a step back. And I am definitely one of the people with lots of privilege.
Well, I mean, it's so kind of you to even acknowledge that, but yeah, so I mean, not many people in your position would even think about doing that because they would be like, oh yeah, more opportunities for me, so let's
Mm.
go with it. Yeah.
And I was on that train. I was on that like career, like climb the ladder. Like I was on that, and I just, yeah. If I can like tell a story, it was quite a pivotal moment now that we're chatting. I'm remembering. I really like had a when I was like I'm a small town kid, like wanted to be an actor, go move to the big smoke, like bright lights, all that stuff. I remember revering that like that stereotype of an artist that lives in the city and goes to opening nights and rubs shoulders with celebrities and yeah, and all that. And I got there. Like I didn't become a successful actor, but I was at those parties, I was at those events, I was in the room with those people. And really it just felt empty. Like it really felt sort of vain. And I just am all about like my like number one value is integrity. And I just was I remember this one like opening night event, and every conversation I had didn't feel real. And it just felt like they were waiting for someone more important to talk to. And I've had so many experiences where I'm just real to everyone. And I've had so many experiences where people want to use me. Like, and if they can't figure out how they can benefit from me, they just won't really want to talk to me. And so after going to so many opening nights and all these things that I revered and just seeing its emptiness, I was just like, oh, I don't want this. Like, and so I had to, yeah, live it to learn it. And I don't want to climb the corporate ladder anymore. Like I want to be in a position to make positive change, which requires some climbing. But when I see people who are at the top of the ladder, they don't seem like they're happy. They seem uber busy, and yeah, they've got heaps of cash, but like, especially in the arts, it sounds like the further you go up the ladder, the further away from art you are. And I still want to be on the floor, like running a workshop or like on stage, like doing a Q&A. Like I don't want that to go away.
No, I think that's, yeah, no, definitely well said. I think it's great advice as well for people who are starting their career in the arts industry. Speaking of, do you have any like advice for people who are even like looking at getting into producing or writing poetry or just arts in general, creative?
Just do it. Like just do it, and don't worry about where it goes. Because for me as a writer, thinking about just my daydreaming about being at conferences and speaking or like winning awards, I just spent way too much time thinking about that. And now all I do is think about what I want to say. But what do I want to say? I don't care if anyone reads it. I just want to make. And anytime I meet a young person that just has the passion and just wants to do it, I always want to support them and help them, because that's the number one thing you need, is just that drive to do it. And it's the best way to learn, because it's not a field where you can really go and do a degree and learn it all. I did a degree and there's so much I did not learn.
Mm-hmm.
But also a big one, which has helped my friends before. Like if I could tell a story, a friend of mine, we used to make coffees together at Art Center, and she didn't really know what she wanted to do with her life. And she was just like living like I was at the time. We were both just like having fun and enjoying ourselves. And she wanted to be a light artist, like make beautiful light sculptures. And this is at the point where I was just like cold calling everybody. Like, and so one night we're having beers at my house, and I was like, what do you want to be? And she's like, a light sculpturist. And I was like, do you admire any ones out there? And she's like, yeah. And she told me who they were, and I knew some of them. And I was like, let's just email them all. And we just sat there and we just emailed them all saying, hey, I really want to learn from you. And now that's what she does. And she like works with one of her idols. And yeah, just because she asked, like just call people and just be like, hey, I want to chat, because everyone I've met in the arts industry, it might take 6 months to get on their schedule if they're super busy, but if they recognize passion and like genuine passion, they recognize a younger version of themselves, they will take half an hour to have a coffee or a beer and share some wisdom. And you just never know what you'll learn from that. And then one day you'll be their peer.
Exactly. I think yeah, definitely, because if you don't do it, you might miss that opportunity. It's as simple as that. Like I think what I always say to students and just people who are potentially looking into getting into dancing or the arts industry, don't have so many boundaries. Like you have to try. Like yes, make sure you are well informed, so you don't like just cultural appropriation these days as well. But
Or get ripped off. I got ripped off for this like paid audition when I was an actor, and it was totally dodgy. Like, so you got to be a little bit careful.
yeah, that's it, definitely. Oh, well, I mean, and that's another thing. I mean, paying artists in general, like, I mean, there are still a lot of organizers out there. I'm thankful to people like you. You guys always give us great events, but at least be upfront if you're not going to follow through with the, how many times, I mean, I'm sure you've experienced this as well, like, just in terms of payment for your creativity. Sometimes it just doesn't come through at the end. Oh, we didn't make the profits, blah, blah, blah.
Oh yeah. That's not cool. Like, yeah, I think guaranteed, like I said before, that magic is the artist. Like, that the artists bring the magic. That's the why everyone's there. So they need to be paid first, I reckon. And if you are, I mean, I volunteered for lots of things, which is part of my privilege. Like, I was in a situation to do so. And I know so many people who couldn't volunteer and therefore couldn't get a job that I've got. I wouldn't have my job without the ability to volunteer.
Yeah, likewise. And I think, that is also an aspect, like a very vital aspect of any industry, but especially the arts industry. It's like you mentioned, like, we're always the first to put our hands up when there's a disaster, or, bushfires or floods or whatever it is, even if it's local or global. I think most artists do a lot of fundraising and volunteer work. So you just need to learn how to balance it. And that comes with experience as well, because you get to know, just the lingo around in terms of how to recognize someone who's totally dodgy as to someone who wants to support you in the future as well. Yeah.
And I think, like, for me, there just needs to be more transparency. I mean, in the arts industry, but just in general, like, just everywhere. Like, I had a really great chat with the theatre company the other day who were just confused because there's just a real disconnect between festivals and art centres and artists, and the mechanisms for them to talk have been cancelled because of COVID. And so there's just silence. And I just think we're a community. Like, we are a community and we all need each other. So we should act that way. And I know for people I've worked for, there's a lot of power and resources. And in any collaboration, I just am so passionate about this. There has to be an equal distribution of power. And when you're someone who has had positions like me, you have to release some of that power, because that's not collaborating. Like, I think that's what's so important about my journey is it started off in collaborative theatre making. Like, that's just how I work. It's ingrained in my brain. Like, if I have to do something alone, I feel weird. I don't want to make all the calls. Like, it's got to be collaborative, but collaborative has to have shared power. And if that's not happening, then it's not really collaboration. You're just telling that person what you want.
Exactly. No, 100%. I was going to say, Joel, we've actually run out of time, but
oh, cool.
So much.
I could talk forever.
Just sharing all your stories and advice as well. And it's really, I think it's going to be very inspiring. I mean, we started these podcasts to keep the arts industry inspired, because I know everyone was demotivated as soon as things shut down. And, just given the effects of COVID on the arts industry in general, so monumental. So hopefully your stories and advice inspire a lot more people. And those of you listening who want to fund Joel's farm, please get
yeah. I don't have a Patreon or anything, but
please put our names down for when it happens. We'll be there.
And it'd be somewhere beautiful. I mean, I live in Gippsland, so I was lucky to get a job at like an outer suburban art centre, and then now I get to live in the country, and it's really, even though I haven't felt creative during COVID, it's conducive to creativity, to just have less distractions. Like, I left the city because I just felt my mind was super cluttered with all the things I needed to do.
No, it's
overstimulated.
That's it. Overstimulated. Perfectly said. I think it's a great opportunity to really just, gather your thoughts, gather your emotions, gather your creativity, gather everything that you need to, and just bring yourself back to reality. So there's been lots of silver lining with COVID. Yeah.
Well, and I think just on COVID, like, there was a bit of hope in the first lockdown, but the second lockdown has been harder, I reckon, for lots of people. And so, yeah, thanks for doing this, and thanks for inviting me. I'm always happy to chat. I'll come back. Like, I could talk forever.
No, we should do a second round, definitely. Maybe like once things open, and that way we can compare some
Yeah.
before and after as well. So we can probably do it in person. Fingers crossed. Hopefully,
Mm.
if things open up by the end of the year. Christmas is only 8 weeks away.
Yeah, I looked at my calendar the other day and I was just like, that's, I looked at it like weeks and I was like, that's so soon. Like, that's weird.
So you can take as long as you like to answer the question, or you can make it one word. You're going to a deserted island. Food's there. Your family and loved ones, closest friends are already there.
Mm.
What are 3 things that you would take?
Books, music, probably like drawing supplies.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
And maybe a sport, like a ball, or like things I could play sport with. That's a 4th thing. But
I'm
yeah,
sure
books and music.
Like a coconut or something. If it's
I could fashion that. I don't need to make that. I can make that. Number 1, books. And my partner's into like minimalist housing decor.
Nice.
And so I've been thinking a lot about like, what don't I need? And like records and books, I'm just never getting rid of them. Like, they're always going to be in my house.
Nice. Okay, fun question. You've only got 3 choices. Bungee jumping, deep sea diving, or spending a night at a proper haunted house, whether or not you believe in spirits or not.
Yeah. Oh no, I'm not into horror. I'd never understood being scared as being fun. Never got it. And I don't like the idea of bungee jumping. I would skydive, but I don't like the idea of falling and then coming back up. I don't like, and that second fall, I hate that idea. But I've been snorkeling and that's beautiful. It's peaceful. Definitely deep sea diving. It's amazing. I did it on the Great Barrier Reef.
Oh, wow.
It was, I didn't meet him, but David Attenborough was there on this island that we're on, filming a documentary about birds.
Wow. Oh, close call.
I know.
Yeah.
And the day I saw a loggerhead turtle, which is like the size of a mini car, like it's giant. I saw one when I was snorkeling, and I had a little turtle this close to me when I was swimming. It was amazing. And there was a tiger shark that we didn't know about. They told us as we got in the boat, there's a shark around here, and I'm really glad I didn't know that.
Yeah, just drop that in. Why not? All right. Interesting question. So take your time with this one. You're having a dinner party and you can invite 3 guests, and they can be either alive or deceased from any point of history or current.
Oh, that's amazing.
And why as well.
And what? Yeah, definitely. Oh, that's a great question.
It's not an easy one though. It is one that you have to think about. I mean, Nelson Mandela was on my list.
I've been listening to heaps of Malcolm X speeches lately. He's really interesting. Maybe, or James Baldwin. I like philosophy, and so there's a philosopher called Hannah Arendt who has heaps of the kind of theories I like and agree with. So maybe James Baldwin, Hannah Arendt, and I hope I said her name right. I suck at pronouncing names. And who else? I really like Russell Brand's podcast. I find him really interesting. He says some polarizing things, and I don't always agree with him, but I think like me, he just wants to learn. He just loves learning, because his current podcast is he's like doing his master's, and so he's just interviewing academics, and I love it. And yeah, maybe that's it. And there's a Canadian doctor called Dr. Gabor Mate, who's like about childhood psychology, because I have a young son who's almost 2. I listen to him a lot. He's really interesting. But they'd all be academic, like philosopher people, because just really deep chats, like super deep chats. That's a great question. I'm gonna like later, I'll just be like, no, that's the wrong answer, and I'll think of someone else. But at the moment, I'm happy with that list.
That's okay. I mean, you know what? Sometimes the list is longer, and like I said, I'd love to do a round 2, so you can think about it. You've got a longer time to think about it. Last fun one to finish off with. Sorry if this sounds morbid. So it's your last meal on Earth.
Oh yeah.
What would you?
No, I think about this all the time. So I'm planning. I don't think I'm going to do it, but I was going to get tattoos of my 2 favorite foods. So my 2 favorite foods are like rare beef pho, and spaghetti bolognese. They're my two favorite things.
Okay.
And there's little emojis on your phone, and I was going to get them tattooed on my arms, like, because I just love them so much. I don't think I'm going to get them tattooed on me, but they're my two favorite foods. I mean, they're both main meals, but I could have a entree of pho and then have some spaghetti bolognese. They're my number ones.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, they're, foolproof as well. So you can't go wrong with them.
Well, and in Gippsland, I can't find pho anywhere. Like, I can't find it. It saddens me. And with the lockdown, I literally can't get it anywhere.
Oh,
I can't go anywhere.
Because you're in Gippsland.
Yeah. But I should just learn to make it. But I've heard making the stock is really complicated and it takes hours.
But then you love learning, so
I do love learning.
Yeah.
I do love learning.
All right. Thank you so much. Guys, those of you that are watching or listening, we're putting all of Joel's details below. So make sure you connect as well and get in touch with him for whatever you need, arts related, and farm related, future farm project.
Yeah, 100%. I'm open to building a commune. I'm open to it.
Yeah. No, I'm sure we'll gather enough artists. Definitely. Thank you.
There is an abandoned primary school out here in Gippsland that is prime for like a little arts commune. I got my eye on it.
That sounds amazing. Yeah. Fingers crossed. One day soon. All right. Thank you so much, Joel.
Thank you.
Will see you in person, hopefully, very soon. Thanks.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.